All right, welcome back, everyone. So today I took this to heart. So this was a comment that was left in one of my videos a little while ago about comparing the advanced version of Gemini 2.0 with Claude 4.0 or even o 01, and saying that it was unfair to compare a mini level target with these plus level models. So I was thinking about this a little bit more, and I think there's a really good point here in that maybe I did put Gemini Flash experiment at a little bit of an unfair advantage putting it up against Claude. And I just gotta say, I really want Google to be good. Like, I would love if it wasn't a Chinese company that had the best model, in my opinion, right now for coding. So I spent the entire day. So professionally, I engineer all over the board, all kinds of technology. I own a company that does e-commerce software, and we have a Shopify app, so I'm doing all kinds of tech on that. What I found when using Gemini 2.0 Advanced is just unbelievable to me, and not in a positive way. So I just want to say, first off, I'm rooting for Google. I want to be a Google fan. I really want it to go well, but I just want to kind of go through my experiences here today. So first off, I want to say, like, first off, you do need to actually pay up for the Google Gemini Advanced. So I'm doing the $20 a month plan. This is the one I've got here. That gives me access to the 1.5 Pro model and the new experimental model, Gemini Experience 1206, so on and so on. The one thing that really was exciting to me with this Gemini 1.5 Pro 1 million token context window, and I was like, okay, that could be pretty cool, especially if I'm trying to do something like that in Klein. So anyway, I spent the entire day using Gemini Advanced, bouncing between a couple different models. So what I want to do first off is say I'm using the Gemini Experimental 1206. This is the AI Studio version. They're the same model from everything that I know, just using different UI to kind of see how they work in particular. And I get a crazy amount of internal server errors, like trying to do things with code. I actually even did lower the temperature here to see if I could get better output from it. So I played around with temperatures from 0 to 0.7, and I looked up to see kind of what the recommended was there. So in ADI Studio, this is about the format I landed on. 0.1, I think, is actually where I ended up ultimately running as I got further on and throughout the day. But these internal server errors were just absolute killer, and there's no retry here. So I actually had to copy and paste it back in to do it again. So that was sort of a painful experience. I moved over to the Gemini Prompt website, which is their other place to actually use their models, and I was getting like partially complete code. So you can see here, the code just stops halfway through. And it doesn't even give me a continue option. If I tell it to continue, it doesn't even continue where it left off. It continues in a place below that, and it's super annoying because I can't just take that code and like use it in a meaningful way. And here's another example here where it just ended up stopping, and again, just doesn't complete it. This is a very simple like HTML table, and you can see here I was trying to tell it continue your code from here, and look at what it gave me. It gave me here stopped. There was more to do. Like, it wasn't even that many tokens that it was putting out. So it could be that they're just really struggling from like over demand for their particular model. But I found it incredibly painful to like get anything done in particular with coding. And this is HTML. Like, this is like the simplest of code. Like, I was doing the most basic of stuff like early this morning when I was trying to get that to actually work. Here's one where it also ended up like cutting short. So this was in the AI Studio one back here again. And you can see here, like, it just stopped here. It did give me a little bit more, but it ended up stopping short. And again, here's another internal server error. So like basically it gave me partial code, internal server error. And then I'm trying to say like, okay, start here, like do this again. So it was just over and over and over again, like painful. And then I wanted to take a look at the timing that was actually happening. Like, look at this one here, where it even cut off 293.8 seconds. 293.8 seconds to run that. 33.8 is an example of I had a very simple question And this is a 2.0 advanced experimental. And it would just sit there for the longest time. Again, I wonder if they're just like overwhelmed with demand right now that's causing a lot of these issues. This is something that I wanted to kind of show. I was testing basically. I wanted to create a HTML table in this format. I'm updating our pricing page. Very simple. I already have some examples of it. So up above, I've given it some context. You can kind of see it. I'll jump over to the tabs here in a second, kind of show some of this. And then you can see here that's taking 82.8 seconds, and it hasn't even returned anything yet. So I was just capturing this throughout the day. And then this one actually ultimately worked very well. So when it worked, I was really happy with it. It actually completed it. It told me the changes that it made, and all the code was there. But it worked maybe 1 in 4 times. Like it completed 1 in 4 times, maybe. So let me jump over to this. I just want to show sort of this is an example of one where I gave it some code with a question in there. So you can probably see the question down here at the bottom. It is a decent amount of code. I basically wanted to add a new menu option above support called billing. And what it ended up doing was cut off right here. Again, that is a pretty large amount. And I was testing 1.5 Pro because I was like, maybe it will be better than 2.0, the experimental one, this one here. But it really wasn't. So let me show you the 2.0 one and what it did. It actually did reply with like a little bit more there. It's a very similar question. And again, it just cut off here. It's like it tries to fill out all of the code every time. And then in DeepSeek, let me just show you sort of the question that I had here. Same exact question. Copy and paste it over here. Again, I'll look at all that code that I put in there. And it's like, in the loyalty submenu, remove the following code. Beautiful. In the left sidebar, above the help, add the following code. Absolutely beautiful. And then add the new data properties because I'm using view. And then update the tooltip position. Again, this is like very simple, like just HTML components. And yes, I know that's like a little too much code to be in a single file. And I spent some of the day this afternoon like tuning it down. But even like removing this and componentizing some of the tables so it wasn't a 600 line file anymore. It still was just struggling to actually do anything. So the next thing that I did is I actually wanted to see how it would work with Klein, particularly using the 2.0 experimental advanced. All right, so I've set this up. I've got a video of a recording I did during the day today, and I'll kind of talk over it. It was only a 3-minute video, so it'll be really quick. So you can see here, very similar mistakes that I've seen in the past where, it doesn't pick up this Windows machine and it ultimately has to go and kind of correct itself. And it did. This was just a funny test I did. I know this isn't practical, but I'm like, hey, I want to I want to make a website for some companies that sells rough toilet paper, claiming that it's actually going to clean better because it causes more friction. Just something like goofy. So here we go. I am hitting save here, and it just goes forward. So far, I haven't ran into any issues. It's kind of doing what I would expect here. And then here we go. We're actually making the folder that it's going to actually go into. So continuing on, it ended up creating the directory, and now it's going to be updating index.html. And again, this is actually going fairly well, in my opinion. Better than I anticipated after using the stuff before. So it got me to think, like, I think the problem in Gemini might be the way that it's processing its code. Like, if it's generating new code, I bet it does, and I'm seeing that here, I bet it does a pretty decent job. But trying to analyze a large amount of code in any way, 600 line HTML and JavaScript or TypeScript file, it has a really hard time putting it, like outputting a format that is useful there, which is like super, super unfortunate. So here we go here. Now it's getting to the point where it actually ends up failing. So I end up getting that 500 internal server error. And I'm like, oh crap, what? Because at first I thought it was going to be one of those like token limit things, but I have an API key, like a paid API key that should be totally fine to actually use here. And then it's going to try to actually run the server here. And then I'll pull up what it actually built here in a second so you can kind of see. But overall, it did a very basic index.html page. It did the styling of it. The site looks like garbage, to be honest with you, when I actually do manually run it, because you notice that it just ended there. So I needed to actually come back and actually type it in properly. And so it's just so what ended up happening here is I actually had one of my local dev environments running, so I needed to go kill that real fast, and then I came back over to here. All right, so now I officially start running it, and then yeah, here we go. Here's what it actually created. It's like the most basic website ever. None of the links actually work. It didn't make any of the additional pages. It didn't actually even set up any logic behind it. Where, I would need to do a side by side comparison, but I have a feeling if I were to be doing that in Claude, for example, I would have a much different experience where I probably would have got a full featured application. So anyway, like I want to go back just to kind of talk about this in particular. Like Google, please make this good for coding. Like I would use it every day over DeepSeek if it could just compare to how it actually processes stuff. You don't need to give me the entire file unless I ask for it. You can tell me the things that need to change in there. 1.5 and 2.0 just are riddled with like internal server errors and issues with it not completing things, even with not a lot of tokens that are actually happening. And the time for response is just ridiculous. I mean, Google, you are like one of the biggest companies in the world, and I want so badly to use your product. So I'm going to keep an eye on it. I'll keep my subscription around for a while because one of the things I actually really do like is the deep research. I think they call it deep think research. I found that I really, really enjoy that. So I'll probably use it for that, but I'm not going to be using it for coding, unfortunately, because it's just not good enough, just not ready. So anyway, that is my date. I spent 10 hours coding today. That is my 10-hour review of Gemini 2.0 Advanced and then a little bit of Gemini 1.5 Pro and comparing that with some of the stuff that I saw on DeepSeek. And honestly, it was so painful. Like I just can't even reiterate that enough. And I would love to hear from all of you guys. Like, are you getting different experiences? Like, is your is your experience with the Gemini 2.0 Advanced like totally different than mine? Is it just because I'm trying to do too large of a file that it's so bad? Because you saw there in Klein that it actually worked okay. Anyway, let me know your thoughts below. If you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe. Until next time, peace.